What's up guys, it's me Calen Chan, and I get asked by so many people how I overcome my fears in parkour. If you don't know much about me, I've been doing parkour for almost 2 decades. I've traveled the whole world competing and even getting top 3 5 times at international competitions and winning multiple national championships in the US. But what I'm most known for is my unique style and being the first in the world to perform many terrifying tricks that people originally thought was impossible. And many people assume I'm just this crazy daredevil and don't feel any fear at all, but that is definitely not the case. I have so many fears, including fears of height, water, throwing up. That's actually my worst fear. And yes, even going upside down sometimes, even though I've done it my entire life. Now, whether you're a complete beginner to parkour or even world class, my 3-step method I use to overcome fear works at progressing at all levels. So let's get right into it. Oh. Bro, who ripped this dollar bill? Step 1, gain understanding of your fear. Fear is a primal instinct and crucial for our survival. We are naturally very curious creatures, so without fear, what would have stopped our ancestors from poking at bears for fun or playing with venomous snakes? I mean, my wife sometimes gets us to play with venomous snakes, but we're kind of careful with that. What I want you guys to understand is that fear is not the enemy, and I want you to learn how to have a healthy relationship with it. I separate fear into 2 categories, gut fear and head fear. Gut fear often comes with adrenaline when we actually think we might get hurt and we need to survive. This is really important to listen to. More on that later. Now, head fear is something that can hold us back because it comes from a lack of understanding. Our imagination likes to over-exaggerate the risk versus the reward. It's what paralyzes us and prevents us from progressing and experience many enjoyable things in life. When I was a young teenager, I went to this water park with my friends literally 6 days a week, about 12 hours a day. There were tons of water slides, but there were these 3 in particular that were at the top of this 100-foot tower. There's a yellow one that kind of went down gradually, a blue one that went straight out and then straight down, and then the orange one that was the steepest of them all, straight down. Forgot to mention I also had a big fear of rides and water slides, but at the same time, I yearned that adventure and adrenaline. Pretty quickly, I got myself to go on the yellow one, but I could not for the life of me get myself to commit to go on the blue or orange one. My friends would peer pressure me like crazy saying, "Oh, it's not scary at all. It's not any worse than the yellow slide." One day my friends finally stopped pressuring me and I was left with my own thoughts. Without the outside voices contributing to my adrenaline response, I was able to start thinking about it logically. What was the risk versus reward of going down these slides? Every decision we make has a risk. Choosing to do something has a risk, but also choosing not to do something has a risk. Now, the risk of the water slide was pretty low. I most definitely was not going to get injured. The absolute worst that could happen is I experience 5 seconds of complete terror and I'm traumatized by the experience and I never want to go on the slide again. But then the risk of not doing it is shriveling up in my bed for the rest of my life, wondering if I am missing out on one of the funnest experiences ever. With this new understanding that was rooted in reality, I realized that my fear was irrational and I just had to send it. My friends were capping because when I finally went down, it was terrifying, but it was so much fun. Eventually, they added this option where you could go down head first on a mat. I was definitely too scared to do that at first, but I went through the process again and eventually sent that too. And then I got so stupid comfortable that I would literally push off the back and jump as high as I can, being 3 feet above the slide, and I would let go and literally fall down most of the way just like Iron Man, and then I would grab the mat at the very last second and just smack at the bottom. I even got in trouble with the lifeguards because it looked so dangerous to them. So it's amazing what your mind is able to do if you're able to push past that first barrier. Now let's talk about how this applies to parkour. The backflip is probably the #1 biggest step you will make in your flipping journey. It is so scary to try to blindly flip backwards and trust that you're going to land on your feet again. Now luckily for me, when I was 2 years old, I didn't feel fear at all and I would throw backflips in my face on my parents' bed. 10 years later, it wasn't pretty, but I was finally able to land my backflips on the ground. You also tend to see freakishly strong college dudes just send backflips, and even with the worst technique, they're somehow able to land it. Even if we can do the backflip in the moment, if we learn skills incorrectly, what happens is over time, our bad habits manifest themselves until one day we finally have a really bad bail or close call, or we just suddenly can't commit to it for some reason. And that reason is because we did the skill, but we didn't understand the skill. It's like knowing 2 + 2 is 4 and 2 × 2 is 4, but not understanding why 3 + 3 is 6 and 3 × 3 is 9. Understanding frameworks versus facts allows us to be flexible, and when something goes wrong, we can adapt and compensate in certain areas. For example, even though I generally tell people to swing their arms in a backflip, I can compensate and still do a backflip with my hands in my pockets. I have actually lost my backflip 4 separate times, but after the last time relearning it, I finally understood the technique and what made the backflip work, and 14 years I haven't lost it since. I've been babbling a lot, so let me tell you how you can apply step 1. We will use the fear of a backflip as an example. Why are you afraid of the backflip? Probably because you have no idea what you're doing and you're going to land on your head. That is a valid fear. How can we understand the backflip that we are scared of? Just like how a baby doesn't go from being a slug to getting up and running around the house, a baby first has to learn how to put their weight on their arms, and then how to crawl, and then how to walk assisted, and then finally they can do it unassisted, eventually running and jumping. Same thing with a complicated skill like a backflip. We can break it down into small pieces. Whether you have access to a gym and mattresses or no equipment at all, there are progressions to help you understand the pieces of a backflip, what makes the flip work and what doesn't. So step 1 in a nutshell, understand why you're afraid, try to learn as much about the skill as possible, and then be honest but optimistic. It's okay to be scared right now because you don't know what it feels like to do the skill, but have faith in the process. Just like I was paralyzed by the thought of going down the slides for months to sending it head first and jumping as high as I could, you can go from being terrified of doing a backflip to one day doing it without even thinking about it. Step 2, build the commitment muscle in your mind. Just like how a muscle responds to resistance training, building fibers and getting stronger over time to make the motion easier, our minds kind of work the same way, but can do even more. When our minds gather data and make decisions, we make stronger and stronger neural connections, and the easiest way to explain it is habits. Forming a habit is a constant cycle that gets stronger and stronger that it's so hard to get out of. That's also why it's so easy to get addicted to stuff. The book Atomic Habits talks about the 4 stages of a habit loop. First there's cue, then craving, response, and reward. So we'll explain it with the parkour session. Cue, this is the environment on where the habit starts. In our case, it's being in the gym or wherever we are training. Number 2 is the craving. We hunger progression, we want a challenge, and we want to learn something when we are training parkour. Number 3 is the response, the action itself, physically and mentally overcoming and committing to our challenge. And last is the reward. This is the satisfying feeling we get after completing a challenge, and this is what makes parkour and other extreme sports so addicting. The reward is what enforces the habit and makes us more likely to continue doing it in the future. With overcoming fear, we really want to strengthen that response part of the habit. Getting used to committing to challenges when we tell ourselves to commit to them. Everyone has a comfort zone. When we stay in our comfort zone, we do not progress. And then I also have a safety zone. This is a limit that we can stay under to make sure that we are not putting ourselves in serious risk. Staying above your comfort zone, but below the safety limit, is the key to fortifying your mind in parkour. It's also going to bring you the most enjoyment in the sport. So here's what I want you to do. Find similar feats to the end goal that are a little bit scary, but you know that you can do safely. Get into the habit of trying new things all the time. Before you know it, when you're physically ready to commit to your goal challenge, you will also be mentally ready. Remember how I said it took 10 years for me to learn a backflip? Well, 2 years after that, when I was 14 years old, I started taking parkour classes, and unlike most people like I talked about with the fear of backflips, I had the fear of front flips. The parkour coach told me that we were going to do front flips, and I said, oh no, I don't do front flips, I'm the backflip kid. I limited myself to one skill, and I was even proud of the fact that I could do backflips and not anything else. Yeah, I was kind of a weird kid. I finally went outside of my comfort zone and I gave the front flip a go, and with minimal time and instruction, I was able to do the front flip and my mind was absolutely blown. There was also tons of other vaults like the dive Kong and double Kong that I thought I would never do until I was like 23 years old. Very specific number, I don't know why I thought that. I learned like 10 new things in my first parkour class. At that point, I had a revelation. What if instead of just being the backflip kid, what if I was the kid that could do everything? Even though I had done parkour for 6 years before that, it was that class combined with going to my first jam and being around a community that was pushing me outside of my comfort zone constantly, but experienced and wise enough to help me stay within my limits. I was progressing at a ridiculous rate. I watched tons of channels like Tempest Free Running and Farang, got so obsessed with it, and then finally I made the goal that one day I wanted to go to the Red Bull Art of Motion, the world's biggest parkour competition. I made this goal at about 15 years old, and I wanted to do it by the time I turned 18. So I had 3 years of going from basically a complete beginner to a world-class athlete. A lot of people thought I was crazy and that I couldn't do it, but I trained all the time, and I made sure that every single time I trained, I tried at least 3 new things. Some days I would even do like 7 new things, but because I was constantly getting outside of my comfort zone and expanding my knowledge, I progressed at a ridiculous rate, and my understanding, just like we talked about in step 1, increased so much that my fear went down and I was able to send insane flips really fast. Fast forward when I was 18 years old in 2016, I filmed my Red Bull Art of Motion submission and I made it in, and it was the happiest moment of my career and my entire life at the time. So work out that commitment muscle in your mind and you will be able to commit to challenges you never thought you would be able to do. Do not underestimate the power of this step. Step 3, calculate and make a decision. At this stage, we are directly confronting the challenge and it's go time. You've done all the previous steps and progressions. There shouldn't be much fear at this time, but if there is, you need to identify, is it head fear or gut fear? Elaborating on the gut fear or the gut instinct, this is a legit fear that's saying, maybe I'm not ready for this and I might actually hurt myself. In these moments, I personally like to pray. I ask God to help tell me if I am ready for a skill and to also warn me and give me that really hard feeling in my gut if I'm not ready. Now, what pushes me 99.99% above other athletes is my ability to commit to things. There is a downside to that though. Unfortunately for me, I've gotten to a state where my comfort zone has gotten higher than my safety limit. Sometimes I get so caught up in the reward, even when I'm having that gut instinct telling me not to do a skill, I push through anyway. And this is the #1 way you get hurt. I have had so many injuries in the last 5 years that have costed me years of training. It's honestly the most devastating aspect of what I do. On the plus side, I can stay under my safety limit and still be comfortable learning skills rapidly. Sometimes I have casual sessions where I'm inventing new skills still. It's not that easy to get to that point. Really make sure you listen to that gut. Now let's talk more about head fear. Head fear, or the mental block, is something that we have to navigate across or break straight through. This is where we have to use our reasoning and evaluate the risk versus reward to convince ourselves to go for a challenge that we are ready for. Now, how do we know if we're ready for a challenge? The key is visualization. You need to be able to imagine in your mind both first person and third person doing the skill perfectly. When I say first person, I mean you need to imagine what it feels like, every single muscle, the landing, and even the emotions you're going to have after you land it. You have to make that moment as real as possible. And from the third person, you're going to imagine what it looks like if someone else is watching you. Can you imagine what you look like in the air performing the skill? You will be shocked with how much this visualization technique evaluates your preparation. We talked a little bit about adrenaline before, but I'm going to talk about what adrenaline does in the moment you're sending a trick. Yes, it is true that adrenaline does give you an extra boost of strength, and sometimes people will send tricks off of pure adrenaline and the hype all around, but there is a huge downside to doing that. #1, you have way less control over your mind when you are in fight or flight. Your movements may be strong, but they're not dialed. And then there's this interesting fact. Normally when we perform actions repetitively, we gain muscle memory so our body can perform things without us even thinking about it. When we are in a state of fight or flight, whatever we perform during that adrenaline stage is not stored in our muscle memory. So even if you send a trick off adrenaline and stomp it, once that adrenaline wears off, your body's not going to remember what it felt like to do it correctly. And that's why a lot of times people only land a skill once, because they're relying on that boost of energy. When I am doing my most dangerous skills, I make sure I am completely calm. I have to keep my stress levels incredibly low and be 100% focused on the skill that I am doing. My best personal example of this is the Kong Gainer Precision I did a few years ago. Kong Gainer is already an incredibly dangerous skill where your head gets super close to a wall, but adding a precision onto a skinny concrete ledge and trying to stick it onto my toes. This is a trick that has been joked about in the parkour community for so long. I didn't just commit to it once. It took me 13 tries, including a really bad one that I almost messed up the whole thing. The amount of mental fortitude I had to bring that day to keep myself calm enough to trust the process and to eventually get that stick was so satisfying. I kept my adrenaline low. I knew the fear was coming from my head. I could visualize it perfectly first and third person. Now, what to do if the fear gets the best of you? When the gut fear stops you, it can be disappointing, but normally you'll feel better about yourself when you walk away from the challenge. But when you have that mental block and you know you're ready to do it and you still can't commit to it, believe it or not, this still happens to me all the time. All you gotta do is rerun through steps 1 and 2. Collect more data for your mind and your body, and then practice committing to similar skills that are easier. So you get yourself mentally warmed up to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. I promise you guys, if you follow these 3 steps, you're gonna see incredible gains in your mental game. If you guys guys found the information in this video helpful, there's something amazing coming. I am launching a virtual experience that will completely level up your game in parkour. Whether you've never done it before or you're a really experienced athlete, this online community is guaranteed to give you results. Not only will I share more secrets that have helped me become the athlete I am today, but we will be doing workshops and Q&As where I will give you valuable feedback that is guaranteed to level up your parkour. If you want to be an OG and have access to this special early bird discount, make sure to click the link in my pinned comment below and join my waiting list. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bruh, I've been filming this video since 9 o'clock. I need sleep. I think I'm gonna get sick. Wow, I'm starving too.